Thank you for joining us today for the September general meeting. For those of you who are just coming on, if you haven't already logged in to the chat with your name and agency so we can track attendance, please be sure and do that. Also, we would love for y'all to turn your cameras on so that we can see your beautiful faces this morning. And if you would please make sure that you're on mute unless you're actually speaking. That's also very helpful. I know y'all have been doing Zoom meetings so long, you know how to play this game. Just a nice little reminder. So today's meeting topic is critical documents and how to assist clients in getting those. And we all know that clients need those all the time. So for general meeting, we always want to provide y'all with some resources and things that you can use. So hopefully you'll get some information about how to help clients get their critical documents. And when we say critical documents, we're talking about things like birth certificates, ID, social security cards, those types of things. If any of you all are aware of resources other than what we present today where you can get critical documents, please share that with all of us, because we all need as many resources as we can get for all these different things. So please, this part of what general meeting is about is sharing information that we know. So please put that in the chat so everybody has access to that. Okay, so let's get started here with our first speaker, who is Miss Denise Yeager from DRC, or as it is more commonly known, the Flag Building. Denise is a person that a lot of people go to when they need critical documents for their clients. So Denise, if you would like to go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the way you set up appointments with me is you email me, and I will email you a date and a time for the clients to come back to see me at the Flag Building. I used to have Nicole helping me, but she is taking a full-time position to where she's at the front desk now. She is not actually helping me anymore. So I'm by myself until we hire a part-time person. The Texas birth certificates, they are local. They fill out their forms with me, and then I have to get them notarized, giving me permission to get it for them. And then I go up to vital records. Because I take so many, I drop them off and they call me to come back and get them. And social securities, everyone's having a time with social securities. However, I have made progress, and I have a direct area district manager that is processing our applications now. But now the printer has been down at JPS, so I have not been able to get the medical sheets. So once we get the medical sheets, the socials should be coming faster. If they've never had a Texas ID, we have to get all the documents required to get them a Texas ID. And they cannot be copies, they have to be originals. Every case is different, but generally you need the birth certificate, the social, and a third form of ID, which could be a voter's school records, marriage license, Medicaid, Medicare card, a work ID, a school ID, and of course the proof of residency. A lot of clients will bring me ones they get from other agencies, but they are not worded correctly or notarized. If they want to use an address other than our building, it must state on their letterhead, the agency's letterhead, that client Joe Smith, date of birth 3/3/1967, receives mail at this address, and it must have the address listed. Then it's got to be notarized and signed for them to be able to use that as proof of residency. Also, if they keep the social intact with the mailing address and the voter registration card has the same mailing address, they can use that as their proof of residency. DPS, I know a lot of agencies are having trouble with making appointments because you do have to make them. They're not ever going to derail from making the appointments. However, I have DPS that lets us just take clients up there every week, but I have to book them as I see them. So like if you were to call me today saying, hey, can so-and-so go with you to DPS tomorrow? That would be a no because I've already got my people lined up. But say this week you have someone that you know have all their documents and they just need to go to DPS. If you just email me and tell me, hey, they have all their documents, can they go with you to DPS? They can always go with us. We don't have to wait on appointments. And that's the out-of-state birth certificates we do online through Vital Check. Normally you have to have their ID. If you don't have their ID, then different states have different requirements. They might let you answer security questions. They might do an affidavit to where they can release it to someone with an ID, a case manager or a relative. Children under the age of 18, it has to be a parent's ID. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Denise. Let me, let's see. So what all documents can you assist with? I heard you list several, but what exactly all can you assist with?
I can help with all the documents.
Okay.
It could be school records, it could be marriage certificates, it could be certificates of abroad. I will tell you, if you have a client with the certificate of abroad, those before COVID would take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. After COVID, they are taking anywhere from a year to 2 years. And that's because you're going through Homeland Security and they're not always going to be at work because of the COVID restrictions.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. And you said that to set up an appointment that they need to send you an email, and that's the case manager or the staff person who needs to send you an email, not the client, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Excuse me. And I did drop Denise's email in the chat if y'all saw that, if you need that. I heard you talking a little bit about timeframes on documents. Did you say who needs to pick them up and where they need to get them?
No. So generally the Texas birth certificate, since I have to use my driver's license to get it, they require me to keep it locked in the safe until their house. That's not DRC, that's not me, that is Vital Records and the district attorney, because they are going, people tend to lose their birth certificates or don't have them when we need them, and I can only provide one birth certificate. So generally we keep the documents locked up, especially if I'm working with them to go to DPS, because the one thing that I don't want to do is work on getting their documents and then they lose them, and then DPS comes and they can't go to DPS because they don't have their documents. But normal pickup time is Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11 if they're picking up documents.
And that's there at the flag building from you?
Correct.
Okay, all right, very good. Did you go over cost being involved for any documents?
It doesn't cost the client anything. We provide everything for it.
Awesome, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right. And are you currently backed up, or do you have a wait list for appointments for people to talk with you?
So like if you, and I have been backed up on my emails, which I think I've responded to everyone today, but generally it might take me 2 or 3 days to respond. The past couple of days because of the stuff change up where we don't run over. Like this week I responded to emails from last week. But if you email me this week, I try to have them in next week for their appointments.
Okay.
So my people this week, the emails came from me the week before.
Okay. And you were cutting out, at least on my computer, when you first started answering that question, but in general, it's taking you several days to respond to the emails.
Well, I'm caught up now, so it'll generally take me about 2 days to respond to emails. But
Okay,
if
so
you email
don't,
me this week- If you email me this week, the client should have an appointment next week.
okay, good to know. I just wanted to make sure we all understand. If we email you today, this morning, don't expect a response this afternoon.
Correct.
Okay. Are there,
Also, if they need to text, because sometimes I'm with the clients and I'm not right at the computer,
Mhm.
they can text my cell phone, but keep in mind, clients text me too, so I do tend to get backlogged with text messages.
So email sounds like it's probably the better way to go?
Yes.
Okay. And are there any particular qualifications for clients to be able to get certificates through you?
Well, it's got to be the city of Fort Worth clients. So like if they're in Arlington, I can assist them. If they're in Weatherford, I can assist them. If they're in the HEB area, I cannot assist them. It's city of Fort Worth strictly.
Okay.
And they must be homeless. Receiving.
Okay, we were getting some feedback there, Denise. I'm sorry if we lost you in the process.
Okay. It must
So you
be
were saying city of Fort Worth specifically and only?
correct. And they must be homeless, receiving homeless services.
Okay. Any questions from anybody in the group for Miss Denise or about critical documents?
I have one.
Okay, Connie.
Yeah, it's Ella.
Oh, Ella, I'm sorry.
Oh, she's on my camera too.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm sorry I have feedback. Mine, y'all have to mute y'all. Hang on a minute. I can't mute mine. Okay, my question is about the Social Security cards. We have to have the original ID.
Okay, so on your email, I responded. You were asking about faxing the ID.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna send their ID in. They won't take copies. It's gotta be the original ID and then they mail it back.
Oh, okay.
What I do
Okay.
is
I see.
I get the medical records from JPS. But Ella, if you'll email me names, because I have been getting socials in and they may be some of your people.
Okay, I will. We have certification coming up for a lot of our people, and a lot of them have re-lost their things. So we're kind of in a rush to get that done. So, but thank you so much. Yeah, I will send you an email on that.
Okay. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
I did want to say one more thing, Jenny.
Okay, go ahead.
We just now gained access to Warehouse to where we're able to start uploading documents that we do have. So we are uploading documents that we have in the safe from the past 10 years.
From the past 10 years. Okay. Now, are you uploading those into your own system?
Into Warehouse.
So like the Green River Cast Warehouse, Nathan, can you help with that?
Yes,
Is that
that's
where
what
they're
it is.
going?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. That'll make that housing process and critical documents for housing move a little easier. Good to know. So how long do y'all anticipate it will take you to get that done, Denise?
It might take a while. This is Christy with DRC. We have documents from, like Denise said, over the past 10 years that if someone was here 10 years ago and we got their document and they never picked it up, we're still going to have it. So
Okay.
we have thousands of documents that need to be uploaded. And of course, we only have a certain amount of time each day we can spend on doing that. So it might take a while. But someone had asked a question in the chat box about the process of finding out if we have a document. All you have to do is email Denise or call Denise and ask her, hey, I'm working with this person. Do you have their document? And then she can check and let you know if the document's here. We've had cases where someone was here 8 years ago. They ended up leaving town or getting into housing, never pick up their documents. We see them again, you know, this year or so, and they come in for an appointment with Denise and realize that we already have their documents stored, so we didn't need to work on getting anything. So you can always check and see if we have a document, if the person had ever worked with Denise in the past.
Okay, well, that's good to know that y'all hold on to those documents. So if somebody has been gone for a while or whatever, that y'all might still have it, and that keeps from having to spend that time and process on trying to get it again for them. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Denise and Christy. Are there any other questions for DRC before we move to our next speaker? Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a no.
Jenny, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Denise, are you able to get out of state items or like birth certificates or just state of Texas?
No, I do all states.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. All right. So if you have any other questions for Denise, please feel free to email her. Just remember, it may take her a couple of days to get back in touch with you. Just be patient and just kind of build that 2 to 3 day time frame into your process, and let your clients know it's not an immediate response, but that you will probably be back with them in a few days for an appointment next week, is what Denise said as of today. Thank you, Denise and Christy. We appreciate your help with that. All right, our next speaker is Maisha Sattler from Project ID/Spread the Vote. Maisha has been with Spread the Vote for 3 years. She is the Texas, Louisiana Regional Field Coordinator and the Assistant Director of Volunteer Services. And Spread the Vote also helps with some critical documents. So this might be an additional resource that you can use. And maybe Maisha can give us some information about if they can do something other than just the city of Fort Worth, because I know we need to be able to access documents for people outside the city of Fort Worth. So Maisha, it's yours.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
We actually do things outside of Fort Worth. For our clients, we can assist with getting birth certificates, social security cards, marriage licenses, divorce records, school records as well. Just like the flag building, if they are in Dallas or Fort Worth, actually if they were born in any place in Texas, we can get their birth certificates here locally. We do get them to fill out the notarized form so that we can pick it up under our driver's licenses. But if they were born in Fort Worth County, they'll get the long form. If they were born anywhere outside of Fort Worth or Tarrant County, then they would get the short form instead of the long form. Either one of them can be used at the DMV or the DPS in order to get their ID or driver's license. So as far as getting their ID, they can use either one of those forms. If they were born anywhere outside of Texas, then we would use our vital check in order to get their birth certificates. We do records from abroad as well, but they do take longer to get in. We're still waiting. It's been 7 months since we applied for a birth certificate overseas, and we haven't gotten it yet. Social Security is still a big issue for us. We do the JPS records as well to get their Social Security cards instead of mailing in an actual photo identification, because most of our clients don't have it. We do not just serve homeless population, though. We can also serve a normal, regular person who just doesn't have the funds in order to get their ID. They can be in a domestic abuse shelter. They can be at home and just because their funds doesn't come in regularly or they are low income, we can still assist them with getting any documentations that they need. We cover all the costs for all the documents, so they don't have to come out of pocket to pay for anything. Sometimes we may have to contact family members though in order to help get birth certificates, because all of our clients don't have the secondary documentation that you may need to go through Vital Check in order to get your birth certificate. So we would reach out to a mom, dad, if they're still living, or a closer relative that will be able to help assist with getting their birth certificates. For a client to get in touch with me, you'll have to email me, and preferably it would be the case manager to email me instead of the client. And you can send me the client's name, telephone number that we can reach them at, if they have an email address where I can reach them at, and then we'll make direct contact with a client. Usually it takes maybe about a week to get in touch with a client, depending on how many referrals we have come in or how many walk-ins we have, because even though we are 100% virtual, we do intakes at the True Worth, and we do intakes at True Worth every Monday for 9 a.m. We do weekly appointments at the DPS. We have a DPS that we work with, and they give us immediate appointments every week. On Wednesdays, we have appointments scheduled. Our appointment days are Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we use the DPS out in Lake Worth, which is a little further, but they work with our clients more as far as IDs and secondary IDs. They are allowed to use their True Worth ID as a secondary ID because they are a part of Tarrant County Homeless Coalition. So if they do not have any other documentation and they go through True Worth, then they can use that in order to help get them an ID. We also have a location out in Dallas as well. We use the Bridge, and they provide the same services. They letter of residency in order. Most of our clients that do not have normal housing, they would have to have a letter of residency, which also has to be signed and notarized, and it does have to state that that client is able to use that location for their mail to come there. The DPS does require certain wording on their letter of residency, so I usually tell all of my partners to shoot me a copy of their letters first so I can let them know if it will work with the DPS requirements or what we'll need to change in order to make it work. What else am I missing? Transportation. If the client does not have transportation to get to and from the DPS, we do provide them with transportation. Usually it's a bus pass to be able to get there. We know the exact bus route, and the bus does let off right in front of the DPS, so they can get there that way. But if the client is not on public transportation route, we would provide them an Uber or Lyft in order to get them to and from the DPS. We used to provide transportation before COVID, where we would pick them up at certain locations, bring them, and bring them back. But since COVID, we have not been able to transport in our vehicles. Once we get the documentation, if we have to pick up a birth certificate, we do usually hang on to the birth certificate until their scheduled DPS day, just to make sure that they don't lose it. However, after their scheduled DPS day, we will either release it to the client or to the case manager, however the case manager wants to do that, because we don't hang on to documents. We don't keep any files on clients. It's just a 2-minute intake that they have to complete online, and then we get them to sign a waiver saying that they are allowing us to help them to get their documentation. Other than that, though, we don't keep any records on the client, and all of our waiver is uploaded electronically. So therefore, once we do get documentation, we try to release it back to the client or back to the case manager. What have I forgotten? Oh, we do also, even though we have a scheduled DPS day on Wednesday, if we have a client that has all the documentation that they need and they just need us to pay for them to get their ID, or they can't get an appointment at the DPS and they need one immediately, our DPS will schedule appointments throughout the week up until 6 o'clock. If it's a one-on-one person, if we're not bringing multiple people, then we can just schedule an appointment during the week. It has to be a week in advance that we let them know, though. We typically can get someone in same day if it's an emergency, if it's something that they just got approved for housing, and if they don't have their ID by today, they're going to lose their spot. If we call the supervisor, she would give us an appointment, but we try to avoid doing same week appointments on them. I think that's it. Did I leave out anything? Any questions?
I have to unmute myself. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say something so there's not confusion. I heard Maisha say that the DPS they go to will honor scan cards. The 4 I go to do not, because you do not have to prove who you are to get the scan card. So, you know, the names do not match the proper documents. So that's the difference why I can't use scan cards. I just wanted to clarify that so there wouldn't be no confusion.
Okay, Denise, thank you. Maisha, we do have a couple of questions in the chat. There is someone who says they work with families, with children. Can we just send you an email referral?
Yes, and I can send Miss Jenny my referral form. I'll actually do that now, and she can forward it out to everyone, because we do have a referral form that you can use to refer clients to me. Only thing that only difference I think with us compared to other agencies that I would like you guys to remember is we can actually only get their documentation if we're assisting them with getting IDs. Our program is kind of hand in hand. Our number one goal is for them to have a valid state ID. But because they don't have a birth certificate, and because they don't have a social security card, or because they were married and they changed their name, the DPS is requiring them to show marriage license or divorce records, which is how we're able to get the documentation, is because we're getting the documents for them to be able to get a valid ID. So we can't do just birth certificates or just marriage licenses. It has to be tied into them getting an ID.
Okay, so a state ID is a requirement.
Yes, the state ID is a requirement. And we also do driver's licenses if they need them, or if they have a driver's license from a different state and they just moved to Texas and they need to get it switched over. We can also do that as well. It's not just state IDs, and it's not just for adults. We also do youth as well.
Okay. But to be able to get any other certificates, it has to be tied to the state ID or driver's license piece.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have another question. We work with older adults and people with disabilities who are not always homeless. What is a good referral process for you? Email the info you requested, and what email is best to use. I did drop your email in the chat. Kelly, I did drop Maisha's email in the chat, so hopefully you can see that. But
Ms. Jenny, I just sent you my referral form as well. If you have all of their emails, email addresses, you can email a mass email out and send them on my referral form. Yes, we will help your client if they have disabilities, even though they are not homeless. They do not have to just be homeless for us to help them to get an ID. Yes, we do work with the homeless population, and we do work with several shelters. However, it can just be a normal person like you or me who's just paycheck to paycheck and can't afford to get their ID. There is no requirements in order to be in our program. Our program will be able to assist anybody as long as they call us or text us or email us and say they need the help.
okay.
And they can also go on our website at www.spreadthevote.org, and they can apply for, or they can request assistance just through our website, and then a volunteer or a staff member will be able to get in touch with them. 9 out of 10, if you are in the Texas area, you're going to either talk to myself, Miss Kathy, who is my Fort Worth team leader, or Miss Lou or Miss Patsy. We're usually the 4 that does the intakes around the Texas area.
Okay. I put the website in the chat. The first one I've got a space in there, y'all. So I'm sorry about that. I retyped it correctly. I will put Maisha's form in the chat in just a moment. But are there any other questions for Maisha about the documents that Spread the Love can assist with? So you're more open, you can go outside the city limits of Fort Worth, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I cover all of Texas from the top all the way down to Houston. We do Austin, San Antonio. We cover the entire state of Texas. We also operate out of 14 other states. And as long as if you have a client who has documentation from a different state that they need, as long as they fall within our 14 states, which is also listed on our website, then we'll be able to get their documentation there as well. Now, if they're here in Texas and they were born anywhere in the United States, then we can still get their birth certificates.
Okay, all right, good to know. And you specifically mentioned that you can help transport people to DPS through bus
Yes.
passes or whatever. So
Yes,
that's a big plus. Now, how would you do like somebody from Arlington or like North Richland Hills that needs to get to DPS and there's no mass transit in those cities?
Then we would do a Uber or a Lyft. Some of our clients have family members that'll bring them. They just don't have the gas. So then we'll provide either gas cards for them, or if our clients have Cash App, PayPal, Zelle, Venmo, we also do reimbursements back for them to be able to get their money back the same day. Some of our clients actually, if they can't find a way to get it right then and there, but they need their ID, they'll have family members who would pay for their IDs and they'll send us the receipts and we'll reimburse them the same day that they do it. So with us, we do have different options. Our number one goal is always to get the client the ID, and because we're 100% virtual and has always been virtual, it's we have more options on paying for things, whether we send a client a debit card a week in advance when we know their appointment is, or like I said, we do all the Cash Apps. We send them checks if they can't, they need a reimbursement and they don't have any one of the mobile apps. We'll send them a check that they can use. So we also send money orders out if they need that. So we have different ways of being able to provide the funds for the client. Also, I do want to mention, I don't know if any of your agencies already do it, but if you work for an agency that already does IDs for clients and the struggle is the payment amount, like you already do the birth certificates, you already help them get socials and fill out all the cards. It's just the income is the part that you guys don't have a grant for or have money for. Then we do have what is called a community partner, where you guys will still do all the intakes on the clients and do what you're already doing. And then we would just provide the assistance part of it, whether that's invoicing or us giving them a Lola card, which we use at our DMVs. So we do have options to be able to partner with agencies who just need the assistance with paying for them.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, Maisha, is you can reimburse clients for the fees of getting their documents, but you can also reimburse agencies who might be doing the assistance, but they don't have the funds to pay for those fees. Is that correct?
Correct. However, instead of reimbursing the agency, we would actually more rather set them up as one of our community partners, where we would they would sign an MOU with us, and we would send them an actual bento or debit card that they would use at the DPS in order to pay for their IDs. That way we won't have to reimburse them, and it will automatically be coming out of our accounts to be able to get it paid for.
So you would pay DMV or whomever directly as your preference if you're assisting an agency,
yes,
as opposed to reimbursing the agency.
Yes. However, we do have the assistance to be able to reimburse. We would just prefer if we can just give them a card and so they'll be able to pay for it.
Okay, great. We have another question in the chat. Somebody said that they've missed some of the information, but if their client or guest does not have any documents at all to show, can you still assist them for an ID?
Yes, however, it will be harder. Most of our clients, if they have already had an ID within the last 2 years and they just need a replacement, we can use their TrueWorth ID or their voter's registration card, or they only have to show one thing in order to get their ID because they already have active IDs. If you haven't had an ID in the last 2 years and you don't, and you're not just trying to replace, then we will have to get all the documentation over it, which sometimes can take longer if they weren't born in Texas and we have to go out of state to get their birth certificates. That all extends the time frame on how long it can take to get an ID. So instead of the turnaround being between a week and 2 or 3 weeks, then the turnaround then becomes 5, 6, 7 weeks, depending on what we have to get for them. But yes, we can.
Okay, great. And I heard you say that you're at TrueWorth on certain days to assist clients. Would you restate when that is and what the time frame is that you're at TrueWorth?
Yes, we're at TrueWorth every Monday for 9 a.m. and we're upstairs in front of the little kitchen area. They'll just come in, sign up on a clipboard, and we have staff there that will be able to take care of them. However, if they can't get to TrueWorth on that day, they can always just email me and we'll do everything virtual where I'll contact the client. Or if the client doesn't have a contact number and you have a certain appointment with them on a certain day, then I'll schedule to be able to talk to the client while he or she is in your office to be able to get all the information that I need to get their ID. They don't have to actually come in person. It can be done. Most of our clients are done virtually.
Okay. When you're at TrueWorth Place, are you all working in conjunction with any other agency to provide IDs and documents, or is it just your agency?
No, ma'am, it's just our agency. We do use JPS Next Door to get the medical records for them to be able to get their security cards, but it's just us with the IDs.
Okay. All right. And it doesn't sound like you have a backup or a wait list. You're able to deal with clients pretty quickly since you do it all virtually. Any wait time is how long it takes to actually get the documents, correct?
Yes, it might take me a day or two to get in touch with them, depending on how many intakes we've done that week or how many times I've had to go to the DPS. Sometimes we have emergency cases come up. Like I said, well, we'll have to schedule one person here or there, which we try not to do that. But that's the longest our wait list is in Texas right now.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much for the information. We have another question in the chat. Anyone who sends a client, or maybe it's just a comment, anyone who sends a client to TrueWorth Place for project I needs to contact Jenny Spencer, and her email is in this message in the chat in advance to sign their client up. So just so everyone is aware of that. Say, I didn't know y'all were at TrueWorth Place. That's good to know. That's good to know.
We have been at TrueWorth. It's been almost 2 years now that we've been there. We stopped for COVID for a while, but once they started letting us back in, then we went back.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Maisha. Are there any other questions for Miss Maisha before we move on? So we've got somebody who can work specifically with clients in the city of Fort Worth for documents. And then we have somebody who can work everywhere else, including the city of Fort Worth, to help with documents. So that's good to know that we can cover everybody no matter where they might be in the state. So got a couple of different options here. That's great. Thank you, Maisha. I appreciate the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan is our next speaker, Nathan Kreitz Heron from TCHC, and he wants to give us an update on CAS and critical documents and how those things are tied together. So Nathan.
Hey, thanks, Jenny. I appreciate that. Thanks, Denise, and thanks, Maisha, for talking about your programs. And, I want to remind folks that it's great to utilize those resources that Denise and Maisha talked about. But also, and ultimately, you can do this too. You don't have to rely on Denise and Maisha to get critical documents for your client. And I understand there may be pressures internally from your agency not allowing you or giving you access to DCSF funds to be reimbursed for obtaining critical documents. But, at least a year and a half ago or so, we really tried to open up the ability for everybody in our continuum to work on getting critical documents for clients and not just continually refer them to Denise, because that was creating a backlog and a bottleneck and people weren't being served, as fast as they maybe as they could have been, because they're having to wait to get critical documents and get set up with that when the person working with them could also help them with critical documents. And so I just want to remind folks and encourage folks to take advantage of that. We created a pretty comprehensive document with the help of Denise that goes through almost every single scenario you could run into about telling you how to get critical documents, giving you step-by-step instructions on how to do that, how to use DCSF funds to get paid back for that, so your agency can pay for that. So I really want to impress that upon you all, because I don't think that there's been much of a change, to be frank, in terms of people just referring people continually to DRC, which is not a bad thing, right? I mean, we want to utilize DRC, but if you can help your client get critical documents, please do that. Please work on that on your end, and not just always rely on DRC. Just want to remind folks about that. Let's see, what was I going to talk about for CAS? Well, I guess I can just give a friendly reminder to everybody that please, when you accept the match on step 3 and you're the primary point of contact, please reach out to the housing case manager and ask for an intake time when the housing case manager is available. Let the housing case manager know when your client's available for intake. Ask your client as soon as you accept the match, when are you available for intake? When can you meet with the housing case manager? When some good days and times? Where are you going to be at? What can I let the housing case manager know so they can let me know and we can help get this match set up for you? Please remember that. And I'll get off my soapbox there. Thank you.
All right, so any questions for Nathan, maybe about DCSF funds and how those work, to use those to pay the fees for critical documents, or anything else that he mentioned? All right, well, he must have done an excellent job about
Looks like we got a question from Eric. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So somebody asked, what about when housing case managers aren't responding? Well, then Charlotte and I bug them and bother them and say, hey, respond. Let them know when you can do it, get an intake going. Please, housing case managers, respond if you're not responding. Not trying to throw shade or anything, we just want to see this stuff moving along. And so please respond when the PPOC reaches out to you. And Charlotte and I will continue to bug housing case managers if they don't respond.
Okay. Any other questions for Nathan? Anything related to critical documents, CAS, housing matches, whatever? Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a no. So we will move right along with our agenda. So we do have several announcements this morning. So we'll start with the TCHC announcements. First is Shannon Barnes. Shannon.
Hello, hope everybody's doing well today. I just wanted to connect with you guys. I know the last meeting we had a lot of discussions, and you guys got a lot of things off your plate and a lot of issues with some things going on about like IDs and critical docs, which is one why we had this session today. But I wanted to let you guys know that we heard you and we have been working it out kind of at the systems level to have a more streamlined way of getting IDs and social security cards for folks. So Be on the lookout for more details and information about that. If your supervisors are asking you numbers for people who need IDs and social security cards, please respond to them, because we need those numbers to be able to make the moves that we need to make. If they feel it's not a need, they're not going to help us out. So please make sure to get us those numbers. And then I don't know if everybody knows, I'm sure you've heard that the VA is moved. So I'm just going to drop a flyer in the chat with that information. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Shannon. I don't know what I did here. I lost my chat. There we go. Okay. So next up is an announcement from the training department at TCHC, primarily me. I just want to make sure, case managers, that you understand that we have a registration process for our trainings, and it's important that you sign up or register before you attend a training, especially with the COVID numbers kind of going up. We're trying to kind of get back into doing in-person trainings and to maintain the ones that we've managed to come back to in-person, but we're having to make sure that we have enough space for people with social distancing and whatnot in the training room. So if you just show up for a training that you haven't registered for, then it kind of throws off our numbers and could become an issue. Supervisors, please don't send your staff to a TCHC training without having them register for it first. Again, it just has to do with limited space and accommodations and making sure that we're as safe as we can be with what we are doing. If someone who is not registered for a training shows up, we very well may have to turn them away. And so they've taken that time out of their schedule and come to our office, and then they're not going to get the training. So just be sure that you are registered before you attend a training. Next announcement is from our youth committee. TCHC is very excited to let you know that our COC has been awarded a Youth Homeless Demonstration Project, or YHDP for short, grant. This is a competitive federal grant awarded to communities across the US, and our local award is over $4 million. The purpose of this funding is to provide youth dedicated housing and supportive services to youth experiencing homelessness in our community. I know this is a big deal because we have had lots of issues with youth, and how can we support them and how can we get them into housing. So this is very excited for TCHC and the COC. The last announcement I have from TCHC is from our outreach coordinator. Rachel wanted me to let everybody know that Tarrant County Public Health will be providing a hepatitis A vaccines from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at True Worth on 9/22, which is tomorrow, and at Beautiful Feet on 9/29, which is next Wednesday. These will be the last two hepatitis A vaccine events for the season. So if you know someone, if you have clients who need to be vaccinated for Hep A, tomorrow at True Worth Place from 8 to 12, or next Wednesday at Beautiful Feet. And so you can get that taken care of.